This is Steve Zeltzer with Workweek, and we're speaking today with Phakamile Majola, and she is the Communications Secretary of the NUMSA National Union of Metalworkers of South Africa, and she wants to talk to us today about a strike of the Impala Platinum mines of 4,000 miners of the National Union of Metalworkers of South Africa who have been on an indefinite strike at this mine. So welcome to our show, Phakamile, and why don't you talk about this strike, because there's very little information about it around the world, and it is an important strike.
Indeed. So what we have is a situation where 4,000 workers who come from 3 different contractors who are contracted to Impala Platinum are on strike. So these are not workers who are directly employed by Impala Platinum. They're actually employed by contractors who offer various services to the mine, and they're on strike at these companies. And so it's 4,000 of them. Our demands really come down to the fact that the attitude of these contractors, and I'll just name them, the one company is called Reagetswe Mining, the other one is called Triple M Mining, and the other one is called NURAC. All 3 of these companies are refusing to engage NUMSA as a recognized union. In at least 2 of these companies, in Reagetswe and in Triple M, there are court orders outstanding where the court has actually ordered them to do verification. A verification process is basically where the company verifies if you have enough membership. So the court has ordered them to do verification to confirm that indeed we are the majority and that they must now bargain with us. They must sit around the table and negotiate with us on the demands that members are making. But they are refusing to bargain. And on the basis that they are refusing to bargain, we have been granted a strike certificate to strike at these 2 companies. At the 3rd company, which is NURAC has recognized us as a trade union, but they are actively trying to frustrate our efforts to engage members. So, for example, they're not giving us access to the workplace. They're not allowing us to hold meetings. They're not allowing us to represent workers in their disciplinary hearings. They're just being an obstacle to the work that we need to do as a union. And so it is for this reason that all workers at all 3 of these contractors are embarking on a strike. They're demanding that these employers must engage the union on the demands which they are making, certainly to try and improve their lives and their conditions.
And this issue of contracting out, it seems like it's a major issue in the United States and in South Africa. You call it modern-day slave traders. What does that mean?
Yes. So in South Africa, the contractors generally have a term. They're called labor brokers. So they're a third party that a company will employ to do certain work. And in 2018, NUMSA won a court case at the highest court in the country, which is the Constitutional Court, where the court confirmed once and for all that when it comes to labor brokers, or what they call temporary employee services, these companies can only impose these contracts for 3 months. And if these workers are important for the operations of the main employer, then the main employer must absorb them permanently and employ them directly and give them the same benefits and salaries as those who are permanent employees. What we've experienced as a union is that since we won this landmark court decision, which every worker had been waiting for since the end of apartheid, we have seen some companies basically manipulating the law and rebranding themselves no longer as labor brokers, but as contractors or as service providers, so that they can get around that 3-month limitation that the law places on this type of exploitation. And these contracts then continue indefinitely for long periods of time. And workers then get exploited for long periods of time. So just to give you a classic example of why this is so problematic, these are workers who are doing exactly the same job. So a rock drill operator, for example, who's employed directly by Implats, will earn approximately 17,000 Rand. But the same rock drill operator is doing exactly the same work, risking his life to go underground. If he works for a labor broker or a contractor, that person will earn only 4,000 Rand. So it's a fraction of what they should be getting. And it's very obvious that the contractors are taking the bulk of the money for themselves, and at the expense of the poor worker who's actually doing risking their lives to extract this precious metal from the ground.
And we're speaking with Phakamile Majola. She is a communication person for NUMSA, the largest union in South Africa. And the conditions, contract labor was something that was being fought against during the apartheid regime. It seems like it's now become a commonplace problem in South Africa.
Well, yes. What we've seen is very clearly this current government does not want to do away with these arrangements. And that's just because there is a political benefit for them. They are senior members of the political party, which actually benefit from these type of labor brokering or contracting arrangements. They will have, maybe through their spouse or through a relative, some kind of contract with some of these mining houses or other big companies where they benefit through this system. And this is why there's been a very strong reluctance on the side of this government to actually do away with this practice. What we are going to have to do as a trade union, quite possibly, is to possibly go back to court to request the court to be more stringent about the interpretation and the application of this law, because unfortunately there are gaping loopholes in this law that have allowed companies to continue to flout this constitutional legislation and continue to exploit workers in this way.
And your union has supported a workers' government, a workers' party. What would a program of a workers' party be for workers who face contract labor?
The SRWP has always been clear that the first thing we're going to do is ban labor brokers. And this is why you need a government which has workers as a focus. Anybody who's worked under a labor broker knows just how unfair these arrangements are. They are unnecessary, especially because the money that the company is paying to the labor broker, they could just pay directly to the employee, So it really is a very parasitic relationship where there's some third party whose only role is some very basic level of admin, but the worker is doing all the work, taking all the risks. So it really is an unnecessary type of framework that exists. But we know how capitalism works. Capitalism always works to benefit and to ensure rampant profits for capitalists. And labor brokering has always been used by neoliberals to do away with adhering to basic labor principles, doing away with things like benefits like pension funds and medical aid, just so that they can extract the most from workers without giving anything in return.
And there are 4,000 members who have been on an indefinite strike. How are these workers surviving? Is there a solidarity fund? How are they being able to keep going without working?
The strike started today. Our members have declared that it is an indefinite strike until their demands are met. This is a lot of employees. We're talking at least 4,000. We're hoping that it will have an impact, certainly on the lives of the contractors, so that they come back to the table. In fact, what I can tell you now, we just received an alert from the CCMA, which is a body that our government uses to resolve labor disputes. There's a meeting that's been set up on Friday to sort of deal possibly with this issue of recognition and set up timeframes for us to deal with the rights that as a union we should have in these companies. So that kind of response is already a positive step. It means the strike is having a positive impact. And we hope that we will see more positive developments which will shift the balance of forces in favor of our members.
And the war in Ukraine and the fuel crisis, the food crisis, is that affecting the working class in South Africa?
Oh, absolutely. Fuel prices have gone through the roof, and this has affected basic foodstuffs. Workers in South Africa are going through such a difficult time. Interest rates have gone up, food prices have gone up, transportation has gone up. In our country, the majority of people live far from where, the industrial zones where all the jobs are. So a lot of people commute to work either through public transportation or using their own cars. And the fuel price has had a very direct impact on the standard of living. Suddenly, your salary does not survive the month. And it's really, really difficult for the majority of people just to survive from day to day.
And what should the labor movement do? It seems like it's a global situation for workers in the United States as well, who have to drive many miles to work. A lot of workers and truck drivers have to buy diesel fuel. It seems like there's a global crisis now that is driving workers to the edge, really.
Definitely a crisis. It's a crisis of capitalism's failures. As you know, the more that crisis, the deeper the crisis is in capitalism, the more suffering there is for the working class. This system is not working. This idea that the markets are going to resolve everything and balance out everything, and somewhere along the line, everything will be okay. It's not working. And at some point, governments need to take the decision to intervene directly in the lives of ordinary people in order to cushion them from the effects of these types of things. I mean, the war in Ukraine, for example, is beyond anybody's control. So why should ordinary families suffer over something that they did not control? They do not control. No one has any control over this situation. We are all suffering as a result of it. It's absolutely senseless that governments are expecting workers and their families to just tighten their belts. They can't tighten their belts anymore. What needs to happen now is for radical measures to be taken to cushion workers, whether that means some kind of fuel subsidy or something along the lines of a transportation subsidy, but something that's going to alleviate the financial pressure that the war in Ukraine has had on the fuel price and the cost of basic foodstuffs.
Okay, well, I want to thank you very much for joining us. We've been talking with Phakamile Majola. She's communication officer with NUMSA, National Union of Metal Workers in South Africa, and there's going to be a national strike of Impala, the platinum workers, and we hope that they're successful. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, Steve, and thank you for your time.